Welcome to the Waterboy and Equipment Manager podcast. My name is Saif Basaria.
I'm Case Charanya.
I knew it. My name is Shaban Samani.
My name is Nabil Hassanali.
And with us are resident Rocket fans, the people we call on when things go right, wrong, and everything in between. Raheel Bhimani and Asad Lalani. Welcome to the show, boys. And thanks, for coming on. I know it's a weird day for Rockets fans, or maybe a good day. I don't know. We're going to find out together. Now, listener, I want to say something very quickly. We have worked, the six of us, very hard not to talk to each other about this trade that just broke down today in the hopes to get it all on tape when we record this. So this is slightly unstructured, maybe less than you're used to. I don't know. We're going to find out. But in the meantime, WBEM pod on all socials, on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram, on YouTube, The Waterboy and Equipment Manager podcast. Now, there was a trade today, a rather big one. James Harden was traded to the Brooklyn Nets. And then I'm just going to give the breakdown and then we'll jump into it. The Rockets, in return for James Harden, received Dante Exum, Rodion Karooks, 3 Brooklyn first-rounders, which is 2022, 24, and 26, 1 Milwaukee first-rounder, 2022 as well, all unprotected, and then 4 first-round swaps. They also received Karis LeVert, who they flipped to get Victor Oladipo. They flipped Karis LeVert to the Pacers and a second-rounder. And then the Cavs, out of nowhere apparently, decided to get Jared Allen and Taurean Prince, and obviously they sent off Exum and that Milwaukee pick in the process. Quite a large trade. The point is James Harden is on the Nets. The Rockets got a few different pieces. Now, I'm going to start with Kay's here. Kay's, simplest way I can do this, can you give me a grade for this trade from the Brooklyn Nets perspective?
Right now, I'm going to give it a B+.
And tell me why.
They lost a lot of depth, losing Jared Allen, Karis LeVert especially, and then Taurean Prince, he's got 7-8 minutes a game probably. That's what you get for not taking my messages, Taurean.
That's fair. Now, Shaban, I want to come to you really quickly. One of the more interesting parts of this trade was the Pacers picking up Karis LeVert and a second-round pick for Victor Oladipo. What's the grade here from the Pacers' perspective, do you feel?
I'd probably give it a B, like a B-. Karis LeVert is very explosive, high volume scorer. I guess Victor Oladipo was just starting to look like his old self. So exchanging him for essentially Karis LeVert through via Houston. I feel like that kind of shifts that or kind of says that Indiana is ready to go with Sabonis front and center as their guy. And I think Karis LeVert will be a pretty good complementary piece to him and his shooting ability, his scoring ability. So I'll give them a B- at that. Karis LeVert's still pretty inconsistent scoring wise.
Okay, and we'll get into the details of what that trade means for them a little later. I just want to get initial thoughts here. Nabil, the Cleveland Cavaliers somehow took stray bullets and ended up with Jared Allen and Taurean Prince here. Grade the trade for Cleveland.
How are you not the centerpiece of the trade and still lost the trade? How does that happen? Is that a possibility?
Well, give me a grade. Give me a grade first. Give me a grade, Nabil.
I'm going to give it a C-, just because why do they need Jared Allen? What purpose does Jared Allen serve for the Cleveland Cavaliers? Unless they actually have intentions to trade Andre Drummond away, in which that grade will change. Because then obviously, yes.
So you said C.
Drummond to the Mavs, yeah. Then it's an A.
We'll get to the speculation. Wait, let's hold off. I just want to get initial thoughts, and then we'll move forward. So, Nabil, you're saying if they keep Drummond, this is a C. If they move Drummond, you said the grade would change. So what would that grade be then, assuming Jared Allen is now the starting center for the Cleveland Cavaliers?
Yeah, they got a little bit younger, and I like Jared Allen. I think he's a serviceable basketball player. I mean, a lot of the times when we talk about him, we say that he would start in majority of NBA teams if he's playing, if he was on other teams. So I believe that they made a solid trade in that front. But if they still have Andre Drummond and Jared Allen, it really serves no purpose taking a player on outside of just contract fillers, I guess. But
sure. So for the record, listener, I agree with Kay's grade. I completely disagree with Nabil and Shaban's grade, but we'll get into why a little later on the pod. Now, Asad and Raheel are here, obviously, to discuss basketball, but specifically the Rockets. So without getting into too much detail, Raheel, the Rockets, what grade do you feel they deserve for what they got back for James Harden?
Yeah, it was I would say grade wise A. Just because look, the situation wasn't great. Everybody knows the situation. They weren't really in a position to leverage much because James Harden kind of narrowed his destinations plus his play, and contract wise it didn't necessarily fit elsewhere. But to get, regardless of whatever it is, they didn't have draft capital. To get draft capital for the next several years is great. Get a young player in return, that's great. So they're not fully waving the white flag. They did get something where they can at least compete and not necessarily go all the way down to a lottery team. And so I think that it'll be good for, it's the best that they could have probably done. I mean, obviously if they would have gotten Ben Simmons, it would have been a little bit different take on this, but with what they got, I think it was pretty good.
So grade?
A.
Okay, cool. Asad, from your perspective, I know that you got a chance. You've spoken to Ali Khan time and time again, Rockets insider for The Athletic. From his perspective, what he told us and talked to us about when he came on the pod a few weeks ago was that the Rockets wanted to get a young, up-and-comer, all-star, potential superstar, kind of guy, draft capital, among other assets. Based on that and your own opinion of this trade, where do you think the Rockets fell on this whole thing? And then what is your grade for the Rockets? Is it different from Raheel for X, Y, and Z reason? What are your thoughts here?
I think my grade here would also be an A. And when I first heard about the trade, when I first broke on Twitter, I saw the picks and the draft swaps. My grade probably would have been about a B plus, and then found out that the Rockets had also flipped Karis LeVert for Victor Oladipo, which I think pushed it up to an A. I mean, Victor Oladipo, we hope that he can get back to his all-star form, but he's a terrific defender. He's a good player off the ball, and I think he'll complement John Wall well. And he's definitely the best player that they got out of, Kurucs, Exum, and even I think he's a better pickup than Karis LeVert.
All right, so we're gonna move. We're gonna change directions. We're gonna go to Case for Players Players Anonymous. My apologies. And then we'll actually get into the nitty gritty of this trade. This feels like a good time to have a moment, take a deep breath, to release the tension in the room. And I think Case is a pro at doing just that. So Case, Players Anonymous, give it to us, man.
Just read Case's background.
For those on YouTube or those not listening and watching on YouTube, Case's background is a picture of James Harden, and it says titties over titles. And I'll leave it at that. Case, Players Anonymous, please.
All right, so this guy his nickname is Young Sav, short for Savage.
Really?
No, Shaban, is short for Savant. The fuck you think?
No, he was being sarcastic, you dick, and you missed the
I know.
point on that completely.
I know. They were drafted 7th overall in 2013 by Sacramento.
What year again? Sorry.
That's 9 points a game, 2 rebounds, 1 assist.
Also, you seem like you got a guess off rip.
Yeah, I know this one.
Oh, then guess it.
It's easy.
It's our sharpshooter, Ben McLemore.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay. I love that Ben McLemore has readjusted his career outlook.
I'm not going to give
becoming
you
a sharpshooter.
any information on this next one, but I really like this nickname.
Okay.
It's Optimus Dime.
Optimus Dime?
Yeah.
Is that like one of the nicknames that nobody ever actually uses for Chris Paul?
No.
Oh, that would be great though.
That
wouldn't
was
it?
my first guess.
I was
No,
like, is it one of those? Because sometimes Basketball Reference has the most obscure nicknames you could possibly think of.
You want me to add career stats to you?
Yeah.
19 points a game, 5 rebounds, 9 assists.
19 points a game.
First overall pick in 2010.
What?
You said first overall pick in 2010?
Yeah, we should know a first overall. We should know a first overall pick. I'm actually pretty
What was his nickname?
Optimus Dime.
Yeah, if he tells us the team who picked him, it's gonna be.
You're gonna know immediately.
Yeah. 2010.
Is this limited to just Rockets players, or is this now open to anybody?
It's a Rockets player.
Who's
I mean,
the
it-
overall.
pick
doesn't-
in-
it
on
doesn't
the Rockets?
necessarily-
Drafted by Washington, first
John Wall.
overall.
John
There you
Wall.
go.
John Wall.
Yeah.
Wow. It doesn't feel like John Wall has been in the NBA for that long, and it also feels like he's been in there for much longer at the exact same time. So maybe that's just right on me. But listener, give us a second here. We're going to take a moment for our sponsor. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about this Rockets, Nets, Cavs, Pacers trade in all its glory. Give us 1 second. And we're back. Okay, so as I said before the break, the Rockets made a trade, and I didn't necessarily agree with everybody's thoughts on this trade. I personally think the Rockets got fleeced. I can't see how this is an A at all in any way possible, unless you're banking on Brooklyn blowing up here, right? Because we're talking about picks in 22 and 24 that are almost definitely not going to be very good first round picks. 26 could be. And by the way, 24 could be too. These players have player options. They could hate each other, and then this could never work. And I think Kays has that perspective, which he'll talk about in a couple of minutes here. But assuming things go well in Brooklyn and they don't hate each other and they don't blow it up and leave in the next 6 months to a year to 18 months, whatever, the 22 and 24 picks won't be good. 26 might be good. The other Milwaukee 22 pick, we know definitely won't be good, right? And then the swaps are cool if the other team sucks more than you do. And maybe that's the case. But again, I don't think Brooklyn's going to suck for at least the next couple of years, which means those picks, the swaps, you won't use them. You won't swap, right? Victor Oladipo, although Shaban did point out, looks more and more like himself, doesn't definitely look like himself. Indiana didn't want any part of him. And more importantly, he's out of a contract in 3, 4, 5 months time, which means you're going to have to pay the guy. And I don't know what his price tag is, but it sounds like he has every intention of being a max player. And I don't want to be the player or the team that pays Victor Oladipo 4 years, 160 or 4 years, 130 or whatever that number is going to be for him as a max player.
Right now he's making like $21 million a year,
which is fine, but that contract expires in 6 months time, right? Yeah. So that contract is almost worthless. Karis LeVert is actually under team control for longer, which is kind of why I would rather have wanted him. Jared Allen's also, I think, a very good basketball player. I think he's more than serviceable, like Nabil had said, and I think that he's actually very capable and fits, to be honest, the Cavaliers' timeline much better based on age and skill level. And Drummond expires after this year. He could walk for nothing, and it wouldn't matter. Jared Allen's the center of the future for this Cavs team, and I think they made that very apparent. And by the way, they gave up nothing to get him. They gave up Dante Exum and a Milwaukee 2022 pick, which I just said is probably not going to be worth all that much anyway, for Jared Allen, who's, I think, a very good basketball player, at least on the defensive end, on the rebounding end, right? So I think personally, my grades for this is very simple. I think the Rockets probably got a C+ here. I think the Nets, you got James Harden. It's an A on paper. That could all change the second they decide to play basketball together. So I'll put the little asterisk caveat there. But it's an A because you get the best player in the deal, James Harden, who's a fucking, one of the best players in basketball. The Pacers also get an A here because you got Karis LeVert, who's, yes, not better than Victor Oladipo, but he's not a huge drop-off from Victor Oladipo, and he's under team control for significantly longer than VO will be and cost a lot less than Victor Oladipo will 6 months from now. And the Cavaliers also get an A, in my opinion, because you got Jared Allen, who's already a better basketball player than your backup JaVale McGee. He's likely your future starting center, if not already off of day one. And all you did was trade Dante Exum and a Milwaukee 22 pick. You traded nothing for that guy. Tell me real quickly, Nabil, because you were the one who talked about this Cavs trade, and I don't want to spend too much time on the Cavs because that's not what we're here to talk about. I know this. But if Cleveland had called Brooklyn and said, here's Dante Exum and the Milwaukee 22 first round pick for Jared Allen straight up, Jared Allen, Taurean Prince straight up, would they have taken that deal?
No, they would have told him to fuck off.
Of course not. So that means Cleveland won that deal for themselves in that regard. They walked away winners, in my opinion. So like I said, I'm going and A for the Nets, Pacers, and Cavs, and a C at best for the Rockets because I don't value what they've returned. And that sucks. I would take straight up Ben Simmons over everything that they just got. And again, that might not have been a deal on the table. It, by the way, likely wasn't a deal that was good enough on the table. Or maybe owner, bitch ass, Tillman Fertitta was just like, fuck you, Daryl Morey, you're never getting James Harden, go to hell. It's never going to happen. Maybe. That's also possible. But then, Kays, let me come back to you. We talked about the Nets side of the deal. Obviously, I know you are the biggest Kyrie fan in the room. Psych. What are your thoughts in a basketball sense? Is this shit going to work? And by the way, I'm not talking about work right now from now until 6 months. All these players have at minimum 2 years and then could opt into a third year for all of their deals. Do you see this running through all of their deals?
No, I don't think so.
Talk to me about why.
Well, one,
And by the way,
Kyrie's
this is your moment to shine, buddy.
Kyrie's already off the wagons. He left the team for personal issues. And then he was at a party with Drake. I don't see how that's a personal issue. Just sounds like you wanted to leave the NBA and party for a little bit. And then James Harden, every time I see a video of him on Twitter, he looks like he's gained 20 pounds.
Whataburger
Every
is
single
good.
video. Huh?
Whataburger is good.
Whataburger is
I
good, man.
understand that. Strip club food must also be good.
The wings are amazing. Magic City, bro.
Magic City.
But not every strip club is Magic City. You
Yeah,
gotta realize.
pregame.
Facts.
Facts,
It is
facts.
our crown jewel.
And then Kevin Durant, yes, he has looked fantastic coming off this Achilles injury. And I'm not wishing injury on anyone, but your body's known to overload certain other parts of your legs to make up for that lost muscle memory. So we don't know how long he's gonna be fully healthy for, or if he's gonna have lingering issues as the season progresses.
In all fairness to your point, Kevin Durant is the least of those three that I personally am concerned.
I'm not worried about Kevin Durant.
Yeah, it seems like you're okay with
I'm
Kevin.
worried
It's
about-
the other two.
I'm worried. All right, so in order, Kyrie, James, and then KD. But KD shouldn't even be on the list because I'm not worried about him.
Fair. Now,
Can I-
Kyrie scares me because literally right before the bubble, he said, "Dude, I could give up basketball right now and not be bothered."
yeah, that's wild.
And
What's crazy?
he was looking pretty unbothered in that IG video.
Look, that was the best of times for Kyrie. But look, the beauty of this trade for the Nets perspective is this is Kyrie insurance, right? It's if Kyrie goes off the wagon, if things don't go right with Kyrie, we still have two perennial all-time great basketball players still in damn near their peak of their powers, who, by the way, seem to like each other, which is a plus, I would say. And they're going to be good enough to do good things in the NBA playoffs. Kyrie is almost the icing on the cake at this point,
You know,
right?
James Harden don't do playoffs.
So I wanted to kind of jump in here really quick. I do think that Kyrie is their number one concern, but I'm also going to go as far as to say that might actually be their only concern. Yes, has James Harden been a bitch this offseason? Yes, has James Harden been a bitch at the start of the season? I'm not a big James Harden fan. I love his game. I'm not a big fan of him as like a basketball player, but that doesn't mean anything. I think when he gets to the Nets and what's up? Oh.
You said I'm a big fan of his game, but not as a basketball player.
I meant to say as a person, but then I was like, I don't really know him as a person, so I can't really be like, yeah, he's a bitch. No, I can't really speak on him as a person. So I had to go back and rescind my point.
Okay, well now we're on the same page, Nabil. So continue. your
So
point.
I think when he gets there, and the main reason that statement that he made yesterday, right, where he said, I think our time has run its course in Houston, right, where he believes that everything's kind of happened and everything's kind of come to an end, that they have to split ways. And I think he just genuinely believes that. And that's why he wanted to go to Brooklyn and try to see if he can do something with Kevin Durant, maybe Kyrie if he decides to check back into basketball. God knows where that man's mind is.
It's on
If
the
that-
fourth chakra.
With KD.
Listener, if it wasn't understood, Kays is our Kyrie on this podcast. So he
Yeah.
vibes with that, but he hates that he vibes with that. So it's like
Exactly.
it's a love-hate kind of thing.
It's all
He's
about
the
the
hipster
third
that
eye.
doesn't know
baby.
he's a hipster. But I do think once Harden gets to Brooklyn and with Steve Nash and
Mike D'Antoni.
KD there, what's up?
Mike D'Antoni.
And Mike D'Antoni, guys that knew how to deal with James Harden, I can't see why he'd be a problem in Brooklyn, if I'm just being very honest.
Shaban, talk
Kyrie
to
is
me-
the number one issue. Is he going to be there? Is he going to be playing basketball for the Brooklyn Nets? Or is his dumbass going to retire to go on some freaking spiritual health trip to India for 7 months? I don't know
Real
what's going to
quick,
happen
do you
with
think
him.
he just got tired of the strip clubs in Houston and he wanted to change his scenery?
I mean, bro, he could
Maybe.
go wherever the hell he wants to.
titties over titles. You said it best. Shaban,
Facts.
come to me in this perspective here, okay? They're going to be together for at least the next 18 months or so. Then they can opt out. Things could change, whatever. If let's assume they stay there 3 years, or 2.5 years, because that's what's left on the contracts. They opt in, They run the course of 2.5 years. Over under 1.5 finals appearances during the next 2.5 years.
Under.
Gave Shaban the hard question.
I did, Shaban. I want your perspective
Under.
on the Nets here.
God damn, that's so hard.
One
'Cause
and a
it's like-
half, 1.5, not championships, just finals appearances in the next 3 finals, the next 2.5 years, the next 3 finals.
Well, I know that now the Nets are the favorites to go to the finals this year.
That was the
That's
next
at least
question.
now.
Are they the favorites in the East?
Yeah. So that's one. And I would probably wager that if they can make it work out, if they can like run it back and improve around the margins. I know that's big. That's a big caveat, but I'm willing to wager. Yeah, I'm gonna say over.
You really like cushion in the fall, don't you?
He's like, please don't shit on me. Please don't shit on me. Please don't shit on me. Kaze."
There's a difference. Look, the difference between Kaze and Shaban is one is full send, is one is, feathers on the ground. But that's why they're both here. They provide different perspectives. It's a beautiful dynamic. Whether they can acknowledge it or not, I will. Nabil, you shook your head vehemently on basically half of what Shaban said. Talk to me about your perspective here.
Yeah, I think I don't think they'll make it to. You said 1.5, right?
Well, I specifically said 1.5 over under, but the thing that I remember you shaking your head to just now was, are they the favorites in the East? And you seem to shake your head no to this. Why and who is?
I mean, hold on. Let me look at the standings real quick before I make this point.
Well, then over 1.5, over under 1.5.
I don't think they'll
Under.
make it. I don't think they'll make it over 1.5. No, I think they'll be under 1.5.
Okay.
Boston looks like a solid basketball team. Milwaukee is also a solid basketball team. Those are 2 teams that should be favorites over the Nets right now.
Philadelphia is also
Right?
fantastic.
Philadelphia looks good this season. We're kind of counting these teams out just because they got James Harden, who, by the way,
Nobody's counting nobody out. That's what
I
we're here to
know, I
discuss
know.
on the podcast. Don't say we. You say you if you
Nets-
want to, but don't speak for we.
the Nets defensively still have some questions, and the fact that James Harden still doesn't play
Some
great
questions.
defense.
That is their biggest question. And also, that's what I wanted to come to talk to you about. The Nets can score 200 points a game, but they might be in the category of having to give up 201 points a game. Their defense after the first 2 games of the season has been damn near atrocious. First 2 games of the season, maybe the outlier, it seems. Now they've moved on from Jared Allen, one of their best defensive players, Taurean Prince, also a very good defensive wing for them. Karis LeVert, who's an above average defender, I guess, would be fair to say. And James Harden comes in. James Harden, you have now loved and rooted for him for the better part of damn near 6, 7, 8 years. So from your perspective, what's up with the Nets defensively? Are they going to be able to do anything, fix it?
Free yourself.
Nah, I don't think so. It's going to be really tough. So the thing with James Harden, one point that Nabil made that I wanted to bring up is, that he's not worried about James Harden, and I agree that I'm not worried about James Harden either. And I think the whole weight thing was all a scheme. I think James Harden has schemed this whole thing from the beginning. So he knew that he
What do you
requested
mean this whole thing? Can you explain this to me in more detail?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Oh, sorry.
so
We're doing the whole build the story before. Okay, sorry. My bad.
Yeah.
I'll back off.
Fucking dick.
I will say I was
He's-
expecting it from the other Houston fan, this whole thing, but I'm glad it's coming
No.
from us.
We'll
Go ahead.
get. I'm purposefully not going to Raheel because I am steeping that tea bag as best I can before we let him sip the tea, might I say. But
The look
go
I
ahead
just
on-
got
on
from
the-
this
on the-
man.
on the defense, man.
So back to the scheme. So when James Harden requested this trade, the Rockets were in thoughts of, maybe we can turn it around. We've got Christian Wood, we've got John Wall here. We can do something and get off to a hot start, and maybe he'll stay. So clearly that did not happen. Pieces were missing, COVID, injuries, back and forth. And the whole weight thing, I think James was just piling it on. He's just like, I got to make it look as bad as possible. Just like I have to. And he did not give a fuck on the court. He would inbound the ball, take us like, yeah, look at him. This one and the one from last night too. Like it was looking like an uncle. Like, that was there. And so, yeah, but
chai
even
cookie uncle.
these last like, especially these last like 4 or 5 games, watching him, he would inbound the ball, he'd just chuck it, like 50 feet up to Eric Gordon, be like, here you go, EG, you do your dribbles, drive into the lane, complain about a foul call, don't get it, miss a shot. And that was that. And so I think he schemed this from the beginning, and last night was just a culmination of that, where the team just got wrecked by a very well put together Lakers team. They, it just did not go well, and it was just like, all right, this is it. Like, I'm done. Here's my statement to the press and the public, like, I'm out.
Can I ask you a quick question before you continue, and then I'll let you continue. But so from what I'm getting from what you're saying, obviously it seems like this is a long time coming. And by the way, I think most of us agree it seems like a long time coming. But my question to you is, if he had not said what he said last night, do you think the trade still would have happened today?
No.
So this last night really was that as big. When it happened, the four of us, and I'm talking about the four regulars on the podcast, we have a group chat, and in the moment we talked about how big a moment this felt. It felt bigger than it almost seemed, and NBA Twitter and whatever and Reddit and so seemed to agree with that sentiment. It seemed like a really big moment, and I think you're telling me that you feel as though it truly was.
Yeah, and I talking to Ali Khan yesterday. He was in the building reporting. Him and his fellow athletic reporter Kelly Eco. They both were there, when like in that Zoom call, and they were just absolutely like shook, like that this happened, and kind of how like the air was sucked out of the room, even though there wasn't anybody in the room. But they could, even if that got through the camera, then that goes to show how powerful and like how crazy that moment was. And so, yeah, I think it was a game changer, and that's what happened and forced Rafa Stone to make a move today.
Wow, that's wild. Okay, so for the moment, listener, you have all been waiting for the red carpet.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, please.
Oh, no.
Please.
Just real quick.
Steep that tea longer.
Just going back to Kyrie Irving for a second.
Oh boy.
Oh God.
Kyrie left Cleveland because he didn't want to be LeBron's Robin, right? Quote unquote.
Sure.
Well, guess what? Now he's Alfred for KD and James.
All right. Back to the moment that you've all been waiting for, listener. Well, at least what the moment I've been waiting for a long time now at this point. The red carpet is laid out for you, Raheel. You can talk about whatever you want for the next couple of minutes, and then I'll cut you off when we really got to move forward. But I'm not even going to ask you a question. Talk about whatever you really want to talk about now, please. Let it out.
Appreciate it.
Cry, just cry though. Let it out.
No, it's not.
3 minutes of just straight tears.
I
Let it
will,
go
I
for
will
about 3
hide my
minutes.
video in that case.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
No, so I appreciate the time, and I appreciate being on this podcast. Also want to first start, and as with most Rockets fans, which they should be as well, being very, very thankful to James Harden for the last 8 years. Honestly, he put us back on the map. We had the T-Mac years, and then we were in the mediocrity. We didn't have much to look forward to. He came in, gave us a name, put us on the map, took us to where we haven't been since the 90s, So before I say anything else, that's where I wanted to make sure that everybody knows I have my Harden jersey on right now. 13 will always be him for me, at least.
Listener, he's also dipped it in kerosene and post this podcast. He'll be burning it. Don't worry.
It's definitely going to be
I'm gonna have to
brown
take it off
and
first,
black.
I have yet to figure out if Raheel will or will not take off the jersey prior to burning it. But this is our chance on this podcast to hopefully talk him off the ledge that he's currently on.
No, I'm
love
okay.
you, bro.
Please don't call help. I'm okay.
Yeah, listener, I'm completely joking. Raheel is mentally just fine.
That's actually it's actually
barring-
pretty consistent with like what I've heard from other Rockets fans, that like they're super bummed out, but overall they're pretty grateful of James Harden's time in Houston, and they're just like happy he got what he wanted. Just wish him all the best.
Yeah,
Exactly. No,
time-
and I'm definitely
time
going to
for
be
him to
rooting
move
for
on.
him. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, time for him to move on and time for us to move on too. Like we're thankful for for the playoffs and the Western Conference Finals. We're so close to the finals, but that's a whole other thing. But yeah, we're thankful in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now what it is, it's been boiling, right? Like this thing, what us kind of alluded to as well, but it's been coming, and this is kind of the era that we live in right now. It's unfortunate that it happened to a team that I root for, but when essentially I put it as this, and y'all can tell me if y'all agree or disagree, but essentially since like LeBron made the decision move and he had that little spiel of like where he's going next, I feel like the power kind of shifted towards the players having more and more say on what and how they want to construct a team. And it's becoming more and more relevant, and it's like addition to this like social media and like the news that we get so rapidly, everything kind of blows up really quickly. And so, it's been something where, people like if you play well, you're a superstar, you get the money, and you get some sort of like unsaid role in the team's direction. And some players do really well with it, and some players take it and they don't necessarily know how and what to do with it. And that kind of was the case, I think, at least for Harden. He forced a lot of hands to get what he wanted in Houston, and he got everything. And now we're in this position as the Rockets, like where they only had so much to do, and they had leveraged everything with Harden, and then pieces started falling apart. Morey, D'Antoni, whatever it is, however you want to play it, but everything just started falling apart. I think that you know, he had his say, but I think that he may not necessarily like what he's getting into. Tell me the last time that he didn't have his team. This was his team for the last 8 years. The last time he didn't have a team was in OKC. Then he got a name. How do you go from having that big of an ego to being part of a team that you're necessarily, you are the best player, one of the two top players, right? You are, I got it. But KD is still the guy, regardless of whatever his injuries. He's like, if I'm closing a game, I'm going to KD. I'm not going to Harden, And so I feel like it will take some time for him. I know that he wants to win. I know he's trying to think of the big picture, but sometimes it's like, it's hard to make that adjustment. Like, it's not like a light switch where you're like, okay, cool, I'll just not take the shot, but I'm good enough to take it.
Let me just pause you for a minute here. I'm laughing only because the minute you said, if I'm going for the last shot. So now I'm mentally imagining the Brooklyn Nets call a timeout. They're in the huddle and you just see KD, James Harden, and Kyrie playing three-way rock, paper, scissors to see who gets to take the game winner. And that guy gets to take the game winner on that given night. That's obviously, I can't even say obviously, but that's probably not what's going to happen. And now I'm off my moment. Raheel, sorry, continue.
No. Before you continue, Raheel, can I ask you like a quick question and then I'll let you like go.
Yeah.
Do you think that James Harden has also changed his mindset on how he approaches team basketball? I know you talked about how he's going to be, it's been his team, and you're right. It always has been his team, and now it's not. Do you think he understood that, and now that's his mindset going into Brooklyn? Go ahead.
That's not his team?
Like that he understands that it's not his team, it's Kevin Durant's team.
Well, also, as you continue speaking about the team, also talk to me about the actual basketball. He can't play Harden ball anymore, one would think. Do you think he can go back to playing team basketball?
And that's the thing, right? So, like, if you think about take a look at the top 10 players that we have in our league, right? There isn't like one style. Like, I feel like KD, he can play all over, right? He plays all sorts of, like, he can play whatever position he can. LeBron plays all over the court. AD, we've seen like he's evolved his game too. So I feel like the style that he has, and it'll probably be encouraged by Mike D'Antoni being there, but I just feel like it's just not made to play with like alpha dog. Like, I feel like he had a problem with Chris Paul. That was the whole thing. Like, I mean, Chris Paul, like, by far the best teammate that he's had, and best superstar teammate that he's had.
I don't know, man. Chandler Parsons was pretty dope.
Bro, I'm talking about Jeremy Lin. I skipped over Jeremy Lin, bro.
Yeah, come on. Show Jeremy Lin, NBA champion Jeremy Lin some respect.
NBA champion.
Tearing up all at the same time.
Sorry, yes.
Chris Paul. But you know what I'm saying? So, like, for him, yes, it could be a complete mind shift that he's already prepared for this. That's why that he probably thought about all this before he went out and requested a trade and all that good stuff, which is fine. But the thing is that I just find it really hard to change a style of play like that really quickly. So I feel like that there will be growing pains in Brooklyn, and I feel like, yes, he might be more more open to playing team basketball, and he might be tired. Okay, so like for the last several years, he has had the most usage rate, so he might be tired of just always carrying the load. That's completely okay, and it was going to happen at some point, and he's getting older. I mean, going from 31, he's going to be 32 this year. Like,
he's a chunky 32.
Chunky 32, but the thing is that now, if he is where he wants to be, you will see that he will be back to his shape that we saw like last year, right? And you will see, like, what I was trying to point out to you, Safe, when you called me this afternoon, was that look at the last 4 games, right? He's averaged 20 points or less. The last time that happened, when OKC, when he was on the bench. Okay, so like, you tell me that this guy, if we're going back, like alluding to what Asad said, where it's all part of a game, and it's unfortunate because that's the superstar power that you have. And I've been saying that, like, you can't have a team that you go get Dwight Howard in his prime, you go get Chris Paul, you go get your best friend Russell Westbrook, and you say that they're all the problem. I'm sorry, I don't believe it. I don't believe that. I don't think that you can say that 3 different superstar players are the problem when the common denominator is James Harden. And so that's kind of why I've been like, let's go. I wish that this would have happened in a different environment, on better terms. But it is what it is. It sucks. We're not going to have, like, the Rockets probably won't have like a player of this caliber for next decade, whatever it is. But the thing is that it became so toxic that I feel so bad for Steven Silas. Like, he didn't sign up for this, right? He came into this with thinking that he'll have Russell Westbrook and James Harden, and he's going to take whatever he learned from Luka, and he's going to apply it in whatever it is, right? But he's been so damn professional. He's been so good about how he handles the press, how he handles the team. And now I finally am looking forward to, getting this out of the way. And now we can actually focus on playing basketball. Now, will they be good? No. But the thing is that, we want to see what he can do, right? No. And the fact that you, like, say, if you alluded that, like, oh, this was like not a good return for the Rockets. But honestly, if you think about it, like, we're trying to salvage a situation. Yes, would Ben Simmons would have been like the better play? Absolutely. But the thing is that he doesn't necessarily fit because you have John Wall. If you didn't have the John Wall piece there, I would have been all in for whatever you get, just get Ben Simmons. But the thing is that didn't happen. And so with all the things that are there, and maybe those picks don't turn out to what they hope to be, but they can maybe package them and get something else. Like, who knows what will happen in the future? But one, I do hope it kind of blows up in like 2 years, so we do get like the benefit of the last several picks. But wishful thinking at least.
So far, he was doing so good until the Houston fan just could not be contained.
I mean, Raheel was so goddamn professional, and then he was like, you know what? I did come on here to talk about the fan perspective of Houston. So you know what? Fuck you, James Harden. In your sleep, I will shave your beard and you can go to hell. And you could take that to the bank, baby. But Shaban, I want to wrap up Nets talk with one last question. And you're the guy I always come to when I have very hard questions. So I will ask you one more hard question, and then we can wrap the Nets tie, up on a bow tie, and we can move on and discuss the Rockets in a little more depth than maybe we already have. Shaban, in the next 3 years, over under 0.5 NBA championships for the Brooklyn Nets. In the next 3 seasons, over under half a championship. So basically, do they win one?
No. Under.
No. Okay. I'll come to you, Case. I think I know your answer already, but Case, do they win one? Nabil?
No.
Raheel?
I really do. I really hope they do. I really want it for James Harden. I feel like he deserves one.
That's not the question.
Where's the malice from the last time you
that
were
was
on
not
this
the
podcast?
question, though, Raheel.
The question was
win one in the next 3 years. Absolutely. How the hell do you have? How are you going to tell me that they have 3 potential top 20 players and they're not going to win a damn championship? You think that, okay, fine. Right now the team is constructed as it is, but then wait till the offseason and you don't think that those ring chasers will come and follow and have like a stacked team? No. Yeah, hell yeah, they do. That's what happened in the Lakers too. I mean, it happens. I mean, that's what it is. You follow the superstars and they will win one in the next 3 years.
Okay.
But he asked, do you think they'll win one? Not what you want to happen for James Harden.
They will win one in the next 3 years.
Got it.
I did say yes.
He unequivocally said over. He did not put feathers down and fall on it. He said, yeah, I would like them to, and I also do believe that to be true. Also, last but not least, will they win a ring?
Yes, with an asterisk. I think it depends
on... fuck you! I just gave Raheel credit for not doing the asterisk.
The reason why...
a little bit of shade, listener. Raheel and us asterisk fans as well, so they love the whole asterisk thing.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Don't hate on my Stros, baby. Don't hate on them.
No, I have to. They're trash.
You're just a salty Dodgers fan. Those Dodgers
they're quite literally trash.
I'm a salty integrity baseball guy, but let's just move on off of that. We're not a baseball.
Integrity and why you're following baseball, because baseball is full of cheaters. Thank you very much.
I'm pretty sure that's every sport.
This is a basketball podcast, guys.
Yeah, but he referred to the baseball. He referred to the Astros.
Thank you for keeping us on task. Asad, you said they're going to win a champion. Talk to me really quick.
Yeah, I think for this year especially, I think they've got some pieces to add. I think they've got a disabled player exception, and they've got a little bit of cap, I think, maybe to work with. I think there are 3 roster spots, so maybe they add some good pieces to pick up, off the free agency. I was going to bring this question to you guys. So, do you guys know of any potential free agents that you think the Nets will try to add, and if so, will they benefit them and help them, bring them up the Eastern Conference standings?
I think personally, the first thing that comes to mind for me is that the Brooklyn Nets, played the Denver Nuggets a couple of nights ago, and Jared Allen played like 33, 34 minutes, and DeAndre Jordan, the only other center on the roster, was DNP coach's decision, and they only have like 10 guys on the roster, 11 guys on the roster at that time, maybe less actually, at that time due to COVID and Kyrie not being there or whatever, right? So they clearly, no matter how much KD, Kyrie, and maybe even James Harden love DeAndre Jordan, Steve Nash and D'Antoni likely don't believe in his actual basketball acumen. He's probably a damn good friend and damn good teammate, maybe not a good basketball player. So they need some depth or help at center. And I think the cheapest, most gettable, and usable player available for them is our guy over here, the guy who's a three-time NBA champion. JaVale McGee is, I think, gettable now with Cleveland adding Jared Allen, Andre Drummond, and JaVale McGee. What are you going to do with all that? We don't play basketball like that anymore. This isn't 1986, right? So I think JaVale McGee is gettable, and I think they could probably just throw a second-round pick in whatever salary filler to get that deal done. I don't think it's going to cost all that much to get JaVale McGee, or they could wait till the buyout, and JaVale McGee might just get bought out. Who knows? He's only on a 1-year deal anyway. It's like 1 year, maybe $4 million, $5 million. It's rather cheap, and I think it solves a problem for the Nets at a very cheap level and a very serviceable basketball player. And it'll help them shore up a little bit of that defense that Asad, you just talked about, is likely not going to be very good.
I actually agree with Saif on that one, but instead of JaVale McGee, I'd like to point out that Serge Ibaka has a player option after this year. If he wanted to go to the Nets and ring chase because he is getting older, he very well could go to the Nets and do that.
And he's good friends with James Harden and Kevin Durant, supposedly.
Yep. So he could easily go out there and do it.
Good point too.
Yeah.
Shaban, do you have an addition of any player you feel could be a good addition here?
Well, Andre Drummond's an unrestricted free agent, so
He ain't got no money.
I'm pretty sure he's not going to get like $25 million next year. So
he's not going to accept the minimum.
And not even close.
But I mean, like, there's also like there's serviceable guys to get, like Gorgie Jang or even LaMarcus Aldridge, who's
leave LaMarcus out of this. I want him on the Mavs. I think it'll be a fun basketball fit.
I mean, I want him on the Mavs too, but I think
nothing.
I think he would mesh pretty well, like offensively, with what they're doing in Brooklyn, the kind of run and gun, high tempo style of basketball.
Kays, last thing before we move off Brooklyn and go to Houston a little bit more. Percent chance this blows up in the Brooklyn Nets face and they're trashed before the 3 years of their contracts is done? Genuinely, don't be a dick about it. Be honest. Percent chance. Yeah,
I'm going to throw
let me change my number.
60-40. 60-40.
60-40 that
it blows up.
Oh, wow. Does anybody on the podcast disagree with that number?
I disagree with that number. I'm not that confident.
Your number.
I'll say like 51-49. That's how not confident I am.
Okay. Does anybody else have a different number? Or are we good with those perspectives?
9%'s a lot.
Not when you factor in Kyrie Irving.
I think.
Well, I mean, like, Kyrie and KD are boys, right? And KD and Harden are boys. It's just a matter of like whether Kyrie and Harden can mesh well together.
But now
all I'm gonna tell you is your boys' boys are not always your boys.
Yeah.
Well, look, the only thing now is who's the best friend, and that could really ruin.
I think we all know it's DeAndre Jordan.
That could really.
We all know it's DeAndre Jordan.
I just picture
KD's my
KD being
best
like,
friend.
yo, Harden's my homie. Like, he's my best friend. And Kyrie just sits out for another month and a half because he's just upset over this one thing. Like, we had a spiritual connection.
Like,
He's gonna need a lot of sage. He's gonna need a lot of sage for that
The
one.
next statement you see on Kyrie Irving is, "Oh, I have some emotional trauma. I need time to recoup."
My guy goes
4
and
to
buys
6
15
months.
different spiritual crystals.
Can
just
this
to heal
man
himself.
retire from basketball already?
all right, boys. Let's go back. Let's talk about the Rockets. We've already talked a little bit about it, but let's get a little more in depth about the Rockets' return here. Raheel and Asad both gave the Rockets A's. I gave them a C because I don't believe in this return at all. Shaban, you seem to like Victor Oladipo, so I'll come to you. What are your thoughts on the Rockets? And do you align yourself more with kind of what Raheel and Asad talked about or what I talked about, or maybe somewhere in between? Talk to me a little bit about the Rockets return here specifically.
Well, I mean, there's no sugarcoating it. James Harden has been a massive pain in the ass. And if I was a Rockets fan, I would be extremely pissed off at how this team is performing and how James Harden is acting and the chemistry issues, the locker room issues, all gravitated around this one man. So, while we might not see the same sort of Victor Oladipo that we've seen, especially on the defensive end on the floor, offensively, he's just starting to turn a corner. Overall, I like the package. I like the package that Houston got. They got a mountain of assets, as Case actually put out that they actually got, and they also got like that Cavs first round pick, which I think
Milwaukee 22 first round pick from the Cavs.
Okay,
big difference.
I mean, assets are assets regardless. Even though like draft picks are kind of like toss-ups in that regard, but they still have a lot of depth at the point guard position, and they're able to. I feel like Victor Oladipo can at least go well with John Wall on that front as like a combo guard aspect. So I would probably just give it a B. I know it's kind of a cop out, but
it's okay.
I mean, it's like I don't know how this is gonna work. I'm like, or if it'll work better or worse. I mean, it's gotta work better, right? It's gotta be an upgrade over what's happening right now. So, yay for Houston on that.
Oh man, so we've got on the podcast 2 A's, a B, and a C. And if you were a Brown parent seeing this report card, you'd be very upset with how this has turned out. Very quickly.
Mixed emotions.
Nabil, change the grade, man. What's going on? What are your thoughts on the Rockets' return here?
I'm gonna give it a B plus. Is that serviceable?
I mean, it's bringing up the GPA, so I guess that's a good thing.
Yeah, I'll give it a B plus. And Kays and I talked about it briefly a little bit. Obviously, we didn't dive into it, but I don't think that the Rockets got fleeced simply because we don't know what's going to happen in 3 years. Brooklyn won the trade against Boston when they got Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett. Or it was Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett, right? Please don't tell me I'm blanking.
Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett.
Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. Turns out they didn't win that trade. So with the amount of years that we're going through this, I have to say that Houston did good, all things considered. They got the draft picks. They've got a Victor Oladipo that all of us seem to like on the podcast. I don't think anyone here hates or even dislikes Victor Oladipo. And for that reason, I think the Rockets did good with the situation that was given to them, especially when it comes to the 11th hour trade that they made.
Damn good R&B singer.
Huh?
Damn good R&B singer, Victor Oladipo.
Also facts. I just think that this is going to be a good trade for them, and hopefully it works out. And if Brooklyn implodes, it 1,000% will work out. So good luck to them.
So it seems as though from the sentiment I have gotten from, oh my God. Guys, Kay's just changed his background and completely caught us off guard here. It's MJ, but with Harden's face on it, high-fiving Scottie Pippen with Travis Scott's face on it. And it says, instead of the last dance, it says the lap dance. And it's quite good, Kays. Well done. So the sentiment I'm getting from multiple guys on the podcast thus far is this is a pretty good trade on its face. And if the Brooklyn Nets blow up at any point in the near future, it's a very good trade, which I think is rather fair. But the current team as it's constructed has John Wall, Victor Oladipo, Christian Wood, DeMarcus Cousins, potentially PJ Tucker. We don't know. Maybe that's the next step. Or Daniel House, Raheel's favorite basketball player on the entire team. I'm being absolutely facetious. He hates the man. I understand why. Raheel, what are you expecting from this team and the way it's currently constructed this season? And by the way, do you want Victor Oladipo extended in the offseason?
Yeah, so I don't think I might not get that far. I think that it's a trial run for until the trade deadline to see the mesh. They're kind of stuck with Walt, and Wall's going to be there. He's going to play out his contract. But if the fit isn't there, if Oladipo is not the player that they assume or they hope that he is, then I'm sure that it's easy to flip an expiring contract. And so I feel like that might be in play. PJ Tucker is on the move for sure, and most likely Eric Gordon as well. I just feel like they're not done yet, but whatever, and I've told you all this specifically, is that Rockets management, I'm kind of skeptical, especially after Morey left. I was like, ooh, I don't know what's going to happen. But they've proved so far, whatever they've done has been pretty good with whatever they have on hand. And so I'm still hoping that they'll make the right moves. I don't know. I think that Oladipo fits better than Harden again with Wall, and Wall has been, as we talked about a little bit, has been surprisingly good so far. And I think that 1-2 punch that, that might not be good enough to make a lot of noise in the West, but that would be good enough to at least upset some teams that are hoping for playoff positioning or whatever. I think it'll work. And with Steven Silas again, now that like I said, like this will kind of show how much of a good coach he is, how good of a coach he is.
I think that's the biggest takeaway. I genuinely, from what we've seen so far, and that's a very small sample size, I very much like Steven Silas as a coach and as a human being. I think he's awesome. And I think that this will be fun to see what he gets to do when he doesn't have to play any very specific type of basketball. Now he can play any version of basketball that he so chooses because he's got a team, at least some version of it, that can do a lot of different things. Coming to you, Asad, here, what's your expectations for the Rockets for at least the next 6 months?
So I think that the Rockets, and I think this goes back to, what you were saying, Safe, about, you wanting Karis LeVert instead of Oladipo. I think the Rockets took Oladipo for the short term and not necessarily for the long term. I don't know how, what the intent is of really extending him. I think something that plays into this is, the Rockets have a pick swap this year with OKC and Miami due to that Westbrook trade. And the Rockets will, the better they do, the more likely they are to lose that pick and for that pick to be worse. So I think the Rockets want to be good this year as much as they can be, to try to keep that pick high and to not lose that pick. And I think Steven Silas, like you guys said, will now have the opportunity to, show really what he's got, because now he doesn't have James Harden, holding him and the entire team back. Harden was basically playing 4-on-5 on defense, right? Like the man would just swipe at the ball and be like, "Oh shit, this was your fault." Like, no, motherfucker, it was your fault. He just was not engaged, right?
Let's go.
And so now, I don't think Steven Silas is going to be changing all that much. He's been trying to implement a system from the beginning, but with James Harden and all the drama, that just hasn't been able to. You haven't been able to see it on the court because Harden just hasn't been engaged, and it's hard to play, 4-on-5, and it's hard for the rest of the team to be focused when they have this huge distraction going on. So I think the upside is there. We'll see how Oladipo's health keeps going for the future. He's looked better definitely since coming back, and I don't think the system is going to change all that much. Silas is big on ball movement. He wants to keep things flowing. He's after being the mastermind behind that Mavs historic offense from last year, he's now got the full opportunity to use everybody. We'll see Christian Wood, be a focal part of the offense. Definitely the number 2 option, maybe even the number 1 option, because Houston loves him and they're really high on what he can do. So I think it's exciting to see. I'm gonna shoot here and say if we can put it together, maybe we get an 8 seed.
Okay, so this is a potential playoff team, at least in the eyes of us out here, which, by the way, I don't necessarily disagree with. They're still got quality guys, and John Wall with the likes of Christian Wood, Victor Oladipo, you can see that all 3 of those guys, among others on the team, obviously, but those 3 guys are basically your best players on the team. They have one thing in common. They're hard workers on the court and off the court. And if it's time for a culture change in Houston, those seem like pretty good culture guys in the hardworking profile, right? And that's not to say James Harden is not a hard worker, but he also plays just as hard as he works, as we've learned over the years, especially the last couple of months here. And that's probably fair. Now, the last thing before we get out of here today, I want to discuss the legacy that James Harden now leaves in Houston. He spent 8 years there. They never missed the playoffs. They also never made the NBA Finals. Never, that may or may not have been his fault every single time. Sometimes it wasn't. Sometimes it was. It's kind of just, it's hard, So from a not Rockets fan perspective, Case, what do you think the legacy is for James Harden in Houston as a whole? What do you think? For the people, for not the people.
He's ready. He's ready.
Listeners, what do you think?
He'll go down as one of the greatest scorers in NBA history for sure, and probably the greatest player the Rockets have ever had. No disrespect to Hakeem,
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
but you can't compare those two with what James has done over the past 6 or 7 years. where he revolutionized the game of basketball on offense. But titties over titles. My man went clubbing more than he went to see the Larry O.B. Also, by getting this trade to Brooklyn, he's paying about $16 million more in taxes a year.
I did not know that. That's nuts.
Welcome to New York, baby.
Well, he's got income tax now that he's got to pay, so that makes sense.
Yeah, there's no income tax in Texas. There is in New York.
So how will, in your opinion, and I'll get to the Rockets fans. I wanted to go non-Rockets perspective first because the Rockets fans might start crying on this podcast for all I know. I hope you've got your Kleenexes ready, boys. But Case, they're gonna retire his jersey, obviously. They're gonna clap for him. They're gonna be happy, whatever. But this feels a little bittersweet, the way this is all kind of went down in the end, no?
It's like when you buy a Boston cream donut, but there's no filling inside.
Oh my God.
I hope you, listener, have never experienced the sadness that brings to you when you take a bite. Because that just...
It's like an Oreo with no filling, bro. Shoes with no laces.
Crocs.
They have the strap that counts.
Facts.
Sport mode, remember?
Nabil had to mute himself.
A rim without a net.
For those not on YouTube, Nabil literally had to mute himself because he's crying while he's laughing hard about this Boston cream donut joke here. I think
A
that's
grilled cheese
Because I
without
know how it
toast,
feels,
bro.
man.
If anyone can relate to that, it's Nabil.
Well, sir, professional soliloquy writer Shaban Samani, how will Rockets fans remember James Harden? What will be his legacy in Houston? Will they be happy when his jersey's retired? Will they give a fuck?
They will. I mean, they will retire his jersey. I think that's a given. He won MVP, and that's definitely worth something. He led them to the Western Conference Finals. Didn't quite make it to the NBA Finals, but they were probably like one hamstring away from winning it all that year. And I think that James Harden will. I mean, I'd say so.
They were.
Well, hey,
Yeah.
someone is a professional soliloquyer. Let him finish, please.
I believe that, even like 10, 15 years down the road, I don't think people will remember the ending to this James Harden saga. At the end of the day, people only remember the good times. Don't really remember the bad times all that much unless they were really, really bad. And honestly, this isn't like all that bad. It was just kind of like just a bittersweet kind of time to move on between both parties. And 10 years down the road, I'm pretty sure that like new Rockets fans are gonna be like, "Oh, James Harden, come back, finish your career, play one more year in Houston, blah blah blah, whatever." But yeah, he is a first ballot Hall of Famer, and he will be immortalized as one of the best Rockets players to ever play.
Sweet. Now, jumping to Asad, who has been a James Harden Rockets fan for a little less than a decade, I think is probably fair. And the reason I point that out is because Raheel will speak from the perspective of a Rockets fan for his entire life, which is a little bit longer than 10 years. And then Asad can speak from a perspective that is about, a little less than 10 years, which is, again, fair. I'm not besmirching your fandom. I'm simply just trying to point that out to the listener because the perspective might be just a little bit different, right? Asad, Harden's legacy in Houston. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Shaban was on the nose there with people only remember the good times and not really the bad down the line. And when I speaking to my Rockets fandom, I became a Rockets fan in 2015 when I moved to Houston for college, and so that was the Houston was like I would be going to a lot of Rockets games my freshman year, and saw a lot of James Harden there, and that's where my Rockets fandom really started. But he's top 3, top 4 in almost every statistical category for the franchise. I disagree with Kays. I think that Hakeem is still the number 1 Rockets player of all time. I think James Harden is second. And, for those reasons, he will be immortalized.
Can I guess the reason why?
Why?
Hakeem actually won a championship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, also,
Yeah.
if I asked you to, give me a list of your all-time players, Hakeem is what, maybe around that 12, 13, 15 mark, maybe
It might be a little
That's-
higher.
right?
That's the most important part.
Yeah, and so if I asked you where he was in your all-time list, you would say he's definitely higher than James Harden. So I mean, but they're both obviously fantastic.
I'm not even putting James on the list.
Okay, well that's probably not fair. But Asad, sorry, continue with your Harden legacy.
Yeah, I mean, him being top three in every statistical category. He changed the game. He's got everybody is the step back is now an essential part of every scorer's game now. And just because that's on James Harden, the way Steph Curry revolutionized the deep three. It's the step back was Harden's thing. And so for all those reasons, the making the playoffs for 8 straight years in a time where Rockets looked like they were going to be screwed after the T-Mac era. And so for Daryl Morey to come in and for that, blockbuster to happen and to see where Rockets are now from 2012, I think is crazy to think about. And yeah, for me, I'm grateful. It was a hell of a ride. There were lots of ups. There were many, many, many downs. But that's how it goes with being a sports fan. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful to him. I think he had his moments where he balled the fuck out and like he worked hard. One thing that I was thinking about when I keep looking at this picture of overweight Harden is when quarantine first started, he was in Phoenix for a while because working with his trainers there, and he had looked like the slimmest that he had ever looked in a long time. And so I think the work ethic is always there, and I think you can't say that about him. He's been so durable. He's played so many minutes, has not missed very many games throughout his Rockets career. So overall, I'm grateful. I'm grateful to him. I wish him the best. I would love to see him win a chip. Yeah, and that's where I leave that.
C'est la vie. This is life. Asad, thank you. Raheel, I now will pass you the proverbial box of tissues while you tell us your thoughts on James Harden and bid him farewell.
Yep, thank you. Look, everything. I'm not going to repeat whatever was said, but yeah, all of the things he was. Whenever he was in Houston, he became one of the greatest offensive basketball players, and through that, he achieved a lot of personal accolades. But personal accolades are good for you, but they're not good for the city or the team, and that's kind of where I'm at right now. Is like, everybody plays to win, and everybody wants their city to have a title or be always like one of the last 2 teams standing. And we never got to say that. And so for all the greatness that he brought, he didn't bring it when it mattered the most. I mean, it is what it is, and it's facts. I mean, like we spent if you're a Rockets fan, you probably spent the last 7 years defending him from everybody. Like it was like Houston against the world, and we did everything that we could to kind of validate his case. And like now it's like, oh, okay, he's one of the greatest basketball players. And now when he's on the Nets, and so everybody's just going to be like, okay, yes, he's great. And if they win, it's going to be like, oh, he's great. But the thing is that there's one key point. He couldn't do it by himself. Like you can say they were one hamstring away, they were this away, whatever it is. But if you are one of the greatest players, you win game 6 or game 7 when you're leading, whether you're playing in Golden State or when you're playing at home. I don't care what the circumstances are. I made excuses too. I said 27 missed threes. I said that they didn't get the foul calls. I said all that too when it was going on. But the thing is, you got to ball out. If you really ball out, then you ball out when it matters most, and you leave it on the court. And I feel like it just didn't happen time and time again. Obviously, whatever it is, it's the one thing I came to realize was that if when you have like that instinct, that killer instinct, some players have it. Chris Paul, whenever we played last year, right? We played the Thunder in the playoffs, and man, like that playoff series was so difficult because he would know how to finish a game. Harden didn't. And so, whatever the case is, he's still going to be, very grateful because I witnessed greatness in my eyes, at least. Whenever we talk about Jordan, we saw The Last Dance, right? We see that and it's like, we were too young to at least appreciate it. I do appreciate all of the greatness that we've seen, like whether it's LeBron, Curry, Harden, you name it, we've seen it and it's been great. And to see it happen on your team, hey, that's good. Whenever they show those highlights, whenever they reflect on his career, they'll show the biggest parts of it in Houston. So, appreciate it for that. But, it is what it is. And I do want him to win. I do, absolutely. Why not? Because he's a great player and he deserves that one, at least one, to put next to all his personal accolades. But hold on, before I want to toss it back to you. But one thing is like, hey, like why? I know this is not maybe not this episode, but maybe one of those next episodes that y'all do, or offline we can talk about it. But KD, like, what he got another big three. Like, when is he going to win by himself? Is he really that great of a player? Tell me why he's that great. Because hey, has he done it by himself? No, he hasn't done it by himself. And so let's see. That's like another topic, but I do want to bring that up because that is very interesting. And KD's my board because he went to UT, but it's still the same thing as like, I mean, he went to Golden State, became a big three, went over there. Now he has a big three. Like, do it yourself, bro.
In all fairness, I have always stated this. I will stand by this. I don't think anybody has actually ever done it by themselves, right? By themselves. I don't think it's possible in the NBA. I don't think it's possible in any sport, but especially in the NBA. You can't do it by yourself. Everybody, I mean, every champion in the history of champions has had at least a Robin, or in this case, an Alfred, to do something of some sort to matter. It has. It just always has. And sometimes it's been a Kyle Lowry.
Stop smiling at me, Asad.
And you know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's been a guy like a Kyle Lowry or Siakam, who we don't necessarily consider all-time greats. And sometimes it's been Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond and Kevin Durant.
But you tell me that reference to Toronto, you say that Siakam and Lowry are potentially first ballot Hall of Famers? No, I don't think so.
No,
right? And so no, but that's what I'm saying. But like, yes, there are instances like that, but then it's also like there are examples like that 2016 title LeBron won. I mean, yes, Kyrie was great, but I mean, but he wasn't
an all-star caliber player at that point, right?
All-star, not superstar. Like he didn't have, like, Harden had his team. I'm just like, sorry, it's like another, like, I don't want to get too into it, but the thing is that yes, I agree with you, but then I also don't agree with you.
That's fair. I mean, look, we'll debate it in the off season. This is a perfect topic to debate all summer long, and we'll have plenty of time to do that. Nabil, wrap us up here. How important, if at all, is winning a championship for Harden's overall legacy? We've talked about Houston legacy. Let's quickly wrap up with Harden's legacy. Does it matter? He's an all-time top 50 player ever.
I think it does matter because we always talk about where in the top 50, right? Say if you and I have talked about it when we talk about Dirk, that ring helped him immensely into cracking the top 15, maybe even just outside the top 10. The reason why people talk about Dirk that way is because he finally broke that barrier. He won the ring. James Harden is one of the craziest basketball players I've ever watched offensively. The man could score from anywhere. He could do whatever he wanted to. He literally was the definition of scoring at will. The thing that would put him over the top, though, that really would get people talking is James Harden, an NBA champion. Kays himself said he's one of the greatest scorers of all time, if not the greatest scorer of all time. We can put all that on his name. A ring is what puts him over the top. And I think he does need to win a ring in order for him to be in that conversation in which we really talk about James Harden like we are talking about him right now, because I think it's a little too much right now. I think he needs a ring to do it.
Okay, it seems like the story might change if he gets a championship under his belt. But in the meantime, James Harden, Raheel wishes you the best of luck. Some of us want to see you crash and burn. I didn't say that. Somebody else did on the podcast. Listener, thank you so much for listening. Let's hope for some really good basketball. Stay safe and COVID-free because it's apparently a crazy world out there. And we'll see you next week. See ya!
Peace.
Bye.
Bye.
Bryant for the win. Bang! Kutzke for three. You got